Law number 12, the law of empowerment. And the law of empowerment says only secure leaders give power to others. Only secure leaders give power to others. In your notes, the people's capacity to achieve is determined by their leaders' willingness and ability to empower. Let me illustrate. Every year, I spend time with my nonprofit organization, Equip, traveling internationally. And as I travel to many countries, I teach thousands upon thousands of leaders. What I have noticed, especially in developing countries around the world, is I've noticed that the person in power, the person that has a leadership position, instead of empowering others, and instead of sharing with others, and instead of including others and developing a leadership team, the person in a leadership position, instead of raising up people, in developing countries most often, they try to push down people. Let me illustrate. Come on up here for a moment. My name's John. What's your name?
David.
David, come on up here beside me. Let me just illustrate this with David. By the way, David, I wanted to pick out somebody good looking.
I'm going to sit down.
No. No. I just looked around and said, I got to get a good looking guy for this. Okay, now, watch this, David. What I found is too many leaders, and by the way, I don't want to stop here, but not only in developing countries, in America, I see this happen all the time. Leaders who have power and have position, taking somebody like David. Let's say I'm the leader, I got the power, I got the position. Here's what I see happening all the time, where we take them and we try to push them down. Okay, come on, David, cooperate.
Oh, sorry.
David's theme song is I Shall Not Be Moved. So these leaders, they push them down. You follow me? And their whole thing is, I got to keep pushing my people down. I got to push them down. By the way, have you noticed something? While I'm pushing David down, what's happening to me? I'm going down with him. That's the way it always works, friend. Listen, if you're a leader and you push people down, you just go down with them. It's only a matter of time. Just as if I take David and I start developing him and I say, I'm going to lift him up and I'm going to get him up to a higher level. Now, notice now what happens? When I start lifting David up, what happens? I go up with him. Here's what I want you to understand as a leader. You either go up with your people or you go down with your people. And this idea of somehow I'm going to protect my position, I'm going to push people down. What we don't realize is it eventually is our downfall also. By the way, thanks, David.
Thank
you did a great job, didn't he, huh? Give him a hand. He did a great job. Okay, now. David, you and I have been practicing that for months, and boy, it worked out really well. Okay. So you ask yourself the question, I ask myself this question all the time. Again, when I travel and I see this happening in other countries, I ask myself, why is it that the leader insists on somehow being way above his or her people and always is trying to kind of keep everybody, I don't know, they have this kind of like, the best way I explain it, almost like a king of the hill mentality. And I got to be on top. Why is it that people fail to empower people and give them the energy and the permission and the environment that will help them to be growing and be great leaders themselves? I think there are several reasons we need to discuss quickly. One of the reasons I think we fail as leaders to empower others is insecurity. You show me an insecure leader and I'll show you somebody that will never empower anybody. In fact, let me tell you what's never happened. An insecure leader has never empowered anyone because they're too insecure. They're afraid that somebody else will get their job. What happens if I give somebody a little bit of empowerment and they do a better job than me? Whoa! And that insecurity constantly causes leaders to keep pushing people down. Let me just say this, and then I'll move on real quickly, because I'll start to show my bias, and I don't want to do that. One of the worst days of your life is to be in any organization where you have to follow an insecure leader. Trust me. It's like walking handcuffed through a landmine. It's only a matter of time till they'll blow you and them up together. Insecurity. Insecure leaders do not empower other people. Another reason I think we fail to empower others is a desire for job security. I do know people who, I don't think they're insecure, they just want to keep their job. They're saying, well, I don't know if I want to train and empower somebody. They may take my job away from me. Now, what I've always taught, especially in my inner circle, who I've taught all to be leaders, I've always told them it's their job to work themselves out of a job. My thing is equip and train people to take your job. And let me tell you something. If you equip somebody to take your job and you train them, here's the way this works. If you work your way out of a job, I'll give you another one. I've had key inner circle members that have had 7 or 8 positions in a period of maybe 13, 14 years with me. I mean, they've gone from this one to another because they train and empower, and then they've done that, so they don't need to run that, so they go over and run another area. I have a wonderful friend of mine who's been with me for over 20 years, Dan Ryland. Little that man, I bet you he has worked himself out of at least a dozen jobs in 20-plus years of being with me. You know what I say to my staff is, you work yourself out of a job, I'll give you another one. In fact, here's the way it works with me. If you can't work yourself out of a job, you're smart, aren't you? I'll take the one away from you. You'll lose the job if you can't train someone else to do the job. But I think sometimes we just don't want anybody else to take our job. Another reason I think we fail to empower people is a bad experience. In other words, I'll bet everyone in the studio, and I'll bet everyone listening to this leadership training tape, I'll bet every one of us have had a time where we've trained somebody. I mean, you've worked hard, you poured your life into them, you trained them, and then it turned out bad. They didn't do a good, they left the company, they left you, they hurt you, they backstabbed you, they did all kind of, how many of you have ever had a bad experience trying to train someone? Raise your hand. Oh, yeah, 100% in the studio. How many of you are sitting beside that person today? Now, see, you've learned. Now your hand doesn't go up anymore. You know better. You know better. Okay, now, a lot of times, just a bad experience. I've had that happen to me. I can remember as a young leader taking a very promising young guy, younger than me. I was already in my 20s, so he was really young. And pouring my life into him for about 3 years, only to have him just mess up. And I remember I said to myself, I'm never going to do this again. I am never going to do this again. I'm done training people. In fact, I thought, when I hire people from now on, instead of pouring my life into them, I'm going to keep them at a distance. And for the next 6 months, when I brought a couple people on my staff, I kept at a distance. And then one day I realized that if you don't allow a person to get close to you, and if you don't pour your life into them, the good news is they probably won't hurt you. But the bad news is they'll never help you. They'll never be able to come alongside of you and truly alliance and partner with you. But a bad experience. A lot of times we just have bad experiences. Say, I'm never going to do that again. And so therefore, we fail to empower people. Number 4, ego. Just ego. Just the fact, hey, a lot of times we don't empower anybody because we want all the credit. Isn't that true? Yeah, we think, my goodness, I empower this team. They're going to get some of the credit, and I'd like to have it all. Hello? Huh? Number 5, codependency. I think sometimes we are codependent with others. In other words, basically what we're saying is I need you and I want to keep you close to it. If I empower you, I might free you up to let you go. And I put in there because it's a true statement, you can't lead people if you need people. Now, don't take that statement to the extreme. Don't go back and say, boy, I don't even like people. This is awesome. I have the first quality of being a great leader. No. If you need them. And the reason you can't lead them if you need them is if you truly need them in a codependent way, you'll never make the hard decisions because you need their approval too much. By the way, as I close out the law of empowerment, I just want to say to you that this has been a law that has been very important to me since I've turned 50 and now much older. I've come to the conclusion for me, now this is just for me, that my greatest joy and my greatest fulfillment is in adding value to others. And I can say at this stage of my life, other people's success brings me more joy than my own success. And I don't mean that wrong because I still like to hit the ball out of the park. And every once in a while I get the chance to hit the ball out of the park. But to train and teach someone else to do that, it's a greater joy. You know what? I kind of know what I can do. But when I pour my life into others and I see what they can do, it begins to compound as far as the return. It begins to, instead of to add, it begins to multiply. And so I kind of close this law by saying that I have found that adding value to people is very important to me. And I basically try to guide my life so that every day I can positively take people to another level. And I found three things about adding value to people that is just absolutely huge. And the first thing I found about adding value to people is this: that you can only add value to people if you truly value people. If I don't value you as a leader, I'll manipulate you instead of motivate you. And it's never right. So the only way that I can ever add value to you is truly value you. And secondly, I only can add value to people when I know and relate to what they value. I've got to know and relate to what they value, because I can't add value to them if I'm on a different page. I've got to know what their interests are and what their goals and mission and passion is. Those are important. So I can only add value to you if I know and relate to what you value. And thirdly, I can only add value to you and to others when I make myself more valuable. In other words, I've got to keep growing. Because if I don't keep growing, I cannot pass on to you what I'm learning. Because you cannot give what you do not have. So how do I stretch you? By stretching myself first. How do I add value to you? By adding value to myself first. How do I grow you? By growing myself first. By making myself more valuable, then I can add value to you. And that's what the law of empowerment is all about. Taking people to a higher level than they would have ever gone on their own. But because you willed it and gave permission to it, you empower them.